This is Jeremy Winston, and we're continuing our series, having conversations with our pastors. And everybody's quarantined, so we're in our homes. It's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts, and we're excited to be able to welcome you into our homes. And I'm excited to talk to Pastor Alex, as we affectionately call her, as she is our associate pastor for children and family ministries. And let me just start from the outset. We already know that she's announced that she will be leaving us this summer. And I can't overstate how that impacts us and how sorry we are to see her leave. But I think this is an important time where we get a chance to really talk to her. And for those persons who may not run into her on a weekly basis, this is your chance to get to know a little bit more about Pastor Alex behind the scenes. So thank you so much, Pastor Alex, for taking some time to talk with the entire community.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. How are you faring during this coronavirus quarantine? How are you doing?
So coronavirus quarantine is torture for extroverts. It's
right.
All sanguines. There she is.
There she is. I can't get rid of her. I try to go. I kind of hide. She follows me on stage. She comes to me in interviews. She's everywhere. But
I love that. I love that. It's okay. She's just cuter than you, Jeremy. I'm sorry. She just.
You've never lied. You have never lied.
Well, and the thing is, I do want to kiss and hug her. I don't have that same response for you, bro. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah. So, coronavirus quarantine is torture. I know that they talk about all the different forms of torture in times of war. This could be one for me because I can't hug and see people. That's
right.
Hard. So my kids are tired of how affectionate I've become. But it's all good. In everything, there's a blessing. And the truth is, during this time, we have our health. And that's why we're doing this stay at home, is so that we can stay healthy. So there's a silver lining to everything. And if staying home means we all stay healthy, that's okay. That's what we got to do. So.
Right. So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to ask you a few questions first. The first one is this. When did you first hear your call into ministry?
Oh, wow. That could be a loaded question. I would have to say that perhaps in my heart of hearts, I was ignoring the call to ministry. I think probably the first time that someone confronted me and said, you really should consider doing ministry was when I was working at summer camp between my sophomore and junior year. I had started working at summer camp when I was 15 as a volunteer, and just absolutely loved it. Loved the children coming, loved singing, loved being in the skits. I loved it. And that was really where I started falling in love with Jesus, was telling people about Jesus and solidifying who he was to me in my heart. That probably was my senior year that we had some guest speakers from California, actually, when I was in high school in Maryland. And the guest speaker and his wife, I was religious vice president, and I was helping at camp. And this guest speaker came and he said, Alex, you really have to do ministry. He had heard that he had heard from me that I was going to do business pre-law. And he's like, you cannot be a lawyer. You've got to do ministry. God needs you. God can use you. And that was all fine and well. And part of me thought, I'm sure that's true, that God can use me, because God is supposed to be able to use anybody who loves him. But that's not the path I want. I want to be a lawyer. And as time went on, I did start college, business pre-law, and was on that path and that trajectory when there was an opening for me to go away as a student missionary. And I spent 21 months as a student missionary and loved it. I loved teaching. I loved being involved in a choir. I helped with the bell choir. I helped prepare kids programs for all the disciplines in the summertime when they had their spiritual retreats. I spoke for Week of Prayers. They just had me doing all kinds of things. And I realized, wow, I feel alive doing this. And so when I came back to the States and was continuing college, still working on my business and pre-law program, I had sat for my Kaplan review and really was, preparing. That was the trajectory. I was going to, go to law school. And it was after sitting for the LSAT and being accepted into law school that one day I just broke down and cried because I knew this wasn't God's plan for me. And went to speak with a great advisor, and he said, Alex, what is your passion? And I said, my passion is Jesus. And he said, then you need to do that for your life. That's the purpose that he's put in you. And so it was a quick turnaround. I shouldn't say quick turnaround because it added another year to my schooling. So I added theology, and so I finished business and theology. And the Lord has opened doors every single time. Never really had to apply for a job. God has just opened doors. And I kept saying, really, some crazy Argentinian chick being in ministry, is that really God's plan? And there were times I thought, yeah, this is what God wants me to do, but this isn't easy. And yet he's just been so gracious and good to us. So when did I first? Oh, that's a good question, but there's kind of the long end of that story.
That's perfect. And I think that really kind of captures the story. A couple of questions from that. Number one, what was the high school you went to in Maryland?
So I went to Highland View Academy all 4 years of high school in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Hagerstown. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And let me just say this, and I know people tend to make jokes about lawyers, so don't take this in the wrong way, but you would have been an excellent lawyer. You would have been an excellent lawyer, but you are an excellent pastor too. So we thank the Lord that he led you. What was the topic of your first sermon?
Whew. Well, I think the first sermon I ever had to preach was actually when I was in high school. One of my friends, my sophomore year, was the religious vice president of student association at the academy. And he said, Alex, I want you to be one of the speakers for Week of Prayer, Student Week of Prayer. And I thought, really? And he goes, yeah, you can do it. You've done a whole bunch of talks at summer camp, and you can do this. I want a short sermonette from you. And I thought, wow, that's kind of crazy. But my friend persisted, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I can do it. I mean, how many girls do you have involved with the Student Week of Prayer? And he goes, 2, you and one other. I was like, oh, okay, well, sure. So I went to my dad and I said, Dad, help me write a story. And I remember my dad said, Alex, you have to always remember that story goes a lot farther with people listening and people remembering. So I was like, okay. So I remember the story. It was a story, we call it the John 3:16 story. And it was a story I remember my dad preaching when I was 8 or 9 years old one time. So we drafted it, we worked on it. And so that was the first time I preached, and that was my sermon. It was all about Jesus Christ and how he changes and transforms our lives and makes all the difference.
Wow. So we had an interview with Jason about a week ago, and it's interesting. He said his first sermon was at a week of prayer when somebody invited him and so forth. So I'm seeing a trajectory with pastors. They tend to start with week of prayer in high school. That's
yeah.
where it started.
Yeah.
What do you believe is one of the greatest threats facing Christianity?
Well, I think the greatest threat facing Christianity is complacency. I think that we tend to want to be self-sufficient and to figure out that we don't really need God, that we got this, and it's nice to be able to go to a nice church and listen to nice music. But I do think that Laodicea perspective and a complacency, apathy towards God and towards a life with him, I think is one of the greatest threats. The devil creates a counterfeit to all God's things. And so people who long for community can find community at Starbucks. People who long for theology can find theology on Wikipedia. people who long for, dialogue and conversation. Nowadays, you can find so much anywhere else. And to me, the greatest threat to Christianity is a complacency that everything we look for, we find outside of God. And that's, to me, the devil's number one scheme. And he works hard at that in whatever area of our need that is.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to move outside of theology and church stuff. We want to hear some about Alex. So tell us, what is a hobby of yours? Outside of the church, you have a day or you've got a month where you can do anything you want to do. What is it that Alex enjoys doing outside of the church?
So one of my favorite things, actually, there's two loves that I absolutely have. One is music. So we're actually in the music room right now, which is our formal living room. And I don't know if you can see, but there's a flute on the floor right there and a cornet and a small, what do you call that? Chimes. And of course the piano. And then let's see, there's all kinds of instruments, trumpet. There's just all kinds of instruments in this room because as a family, we love music. And that's one of my hobbies. It's just something I enjoy. It's something that's, I don't know, helps me unplug, helps me unplug from life and helps me connect to God. And it's something that I get to enjoy with my family. We make a lot of noise, Psalm 100, we make a joyful noise. And right. I'll tell you, it noises the operating. Right. Yeah. So that's one of my hobbies. Music is one of my hobbies. Another hobby for me is sports. I was always that kid that was either climbing the tree or playing football. And so for me, I absolutely love playing sports. I love playing soccer. I love playing volleyball. I love playing basketball. I love swimming. I love water sports. I'm not so good at snow sports, but I love water sports. So water skiing and swimming, diving. Used to be on a springboard diving team. Love doing that, although I haven't tried that in a while. But love sports. And and that's another thing that fortunately my family is involved with and likes to do as well. So those are some of my hobbies. I would say another hobby is just kind of spending time with my family or with friends. Just love talking, laughing, sharing. My daughter asked me recently, do you enjoy cooking? And being the Italian Argentine background, I would have to say the only reason I enjoy cooking is because I know many will enjoy it. For me, cooking for the sake of cooking, no, not necessarily a love, but cooking because people can come over. That's when I love cooking. So
right, the true extrovert at heart, and to bring
yes,
people in. Yes, indeed.
That's right.
Describe your 20s in one sentence.
Woo, 20s in one sentence. Searching.
Okay.
Searching. One word or one sentence?
Well, searching can be a sentence. I'm sure there's some philosopher out there that would agree that searching is a sentence. Right.
Yeah, I think I was searching for, absolutely searching. I had a jilted, that's the right word, engagement, switching paths of careers, going away as a student missionary, figuring out who I was. Definitely the one word that I could describe my 20s, it would be searching.
Got it. Okay, last part, okay? And this is just going to be rapid fire. So I'm just going to throw a few things out you. First thing that comes to my first answer. I'm going to try my best. Morning, noon, or night?
Which do I love more or which one?
Yes.
Just anything? Okay.
Morning, noon, or night?
Morning, noon, and night. Yes, all three.
No. You have to pick one.
Oh, darn.
So if you had to pick, which part of the day, I guess in one sense, is your time. This is when your juices are flowing, your energy is going. Is it morning? Is it noon? Or is it night?
Oh, yes.
all the time.
It's all the time.
All the time. Okay.
If I'm awake,
you're going.
It's all.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't consider myself a morning person. I don't wake up jumping up and down, but I'm also not a night owl. If I'm awake, I'm living the dream.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. What is your favorite movie?
Woo! That's a crazy question. Wow. I don't know that I've ever had to pick one. Favorite movie. Let me think about that.
All right, I'll come back to that.
That's like asking me a favorite song or a favorite color.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
those are just hard.
2 or 3 came to your mind in that instant. So
Yeah.
I won't hold you to the 2 or 3, but give us one.
Okay, well, 2 or 3 that came to my mind. One of the movies that came to my mind was Princess Bride, because I mean, it's a classic.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of high school because that's the first time I saw it. I was in high school. Probably another movie that comes to mind was the first movie that I ever saw in the movie theater when I was 11 or 12 years old. My parents took me to see Annie.
Okay.
But probably my lifelong movie that I have loved since I was a little girl was Sound of Music. So sorry, I'm such a classic kind of chick.
No, it's okay. It's all right. It's all right. I could not sit through Sound of Music, and I know that's so antithetical to who I am. But I as a kid, it would come on. I would see the first 10 minutes, and I had to get up and I had to go. I've never seen the whole movie ever to this day. So
oh my word!
Still not seen the whole movie.
Someday remind me, and I'll tell you my story about Sound of Music.
Okay. Dream car.
Dream car. Wow, see, such a boy question.
I know. I'm sorry.
I know, it's okay. It's okay. Dream car. Well, right now, the easiest car to say that would be a dream to drive is a Tesla. I would like to go 0 to 60 really fast.
Right.
But I don't know that it's been my dream car. You know, to me, being able to drive any convertible along, you know, the one highway along the beach, that would be great. Along the Pacific Ocean, I would love that.
Pacific Coast Highway.
But no, I mean, for speed, I would maybe a Tesla.
Okay. Who's your favorite superhero? Maybe this is another boy question again. I'm sorry.
It is. It's a boy question.
Sorry.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is Wonder Woman because I'm a girl.
Right.
But really the one that I've always thought would be the really so cool to fly. So Superman comes to mind. But
Superwoman, she flies.
There we go. Yes, either one. I honestly, I just never got into any of the superheroes. So
Gotcha. Okay. So if you had to choose, too hot or too cold?
As far as food or how I feel?
You how you feel? Would you if you had to be too something, would you prefer to be too hot or would you prefer to be too cold?
Probably too cold because I figured out how to live with cold. Too hot, there's only so much clothes you can take off. So.
Right. And still be socially acceptable.
Acceptable.
Right.
Still be employed as a pastor.
Still be employed. Exactly. Favorite holiday?
Whew. You know, everyone's going to say Christmas. For me, Christmas has a different meaning because of the way I grew up celebrating Christmas. For me, the Argentine way of celebrating Christmas made it so very special, made it so much about family and truly a focal on who Christ was. I would have to say Christmas still.
Christmas. Thank you so much, Pastor Alex, for taking some time to talk to us and letting the church community into your home. You showed us your room. You talked to us about your path into the ministry and things that you loved. And we've learned that you don't care what kind of car you drive, and you're not really into superheroes. So, but our hearts are with you. We love you, and we're sorry to see you go. But we know that the Lord has something in store for you in Florida. So you'll be someplace. Well, you won't get too cold down there. That's one thing. So you make it too hot, but you won't get too cold. So that's one thing Ohio has on Florida that you'll never be able to get back. So
that's right. Right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye.